Hello, NAGDA members. I'm Matt Peterson, NAGDA's Executive Director, and today we will discuss techniques you can use to boost enrollment in your plan if you cannot use automatic enrollment. As many of you know, automatic enrollment has proven to be one of the most effective methods to increase participation in defined contribution plans. However, the provision is prohibited in some form in most states for public plans. In the absence of automatic enrollment, plan sponsors and industry providers are employing innovative techniques to find ways to get people into the plan, and we'll bring you a few of those today. In 2019, NAGDA awarded multiple plans from across the country who were successful in using non-automatic enrollment campaigns to increase retirement plan participation. Although the campaigns differ in many ways, common trends emerged that may be helpful to plans of all sizes when developing campaigns aimed at increasing enrollment in the future. In this webinar today, we will explore the current state of automatic enrollment in the public sector and learn how two 2019 NAGDA Leadership Award-winning plans and their industry partners were able to increase plan participation without the use of automatic enrollment. Let's start by introducing our presenters. With me today are the team from the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, or SEPTA. First, we have Jacob Offshauer, Assistant General Manager of Human Resources at SEPTA. And he's joined by his colleagues from Prudential Financial, Mark Colasanto, the Senior Retirement Counselor, and Robert Lamb, their Communications Consultant. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
We are also joined by the team from the state of Alaska. And there we have Roberto Acevedo, the Counseling and Benefits Education Manager for the state, and his colleague Liz Davidson, Managing Director from Empower Financial. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we get into these excellent campaigns, I do want to briefly speak about the state of automatic enrollment in the public sector. I mentioned at the beginning that we will be focused on techniques for plans that cannot use automatic enrollment. And this is the case for many of you, as most states prohibit automatic enrollment in some form. On the NAGDA website, we built a comprehensive map to show the variety of rules affecting automatic enrollment across the country. Generally, each state fell into one of four categories. You can see from the map, the forest green represents states where automatic enrollment is allowed for any public plan at the state or local level. Currently, only 9 states are in that category. Many of these states have explicitly passed a law to allow public plans to automatically enroll their employees. Moving on, the purple section represents states that allow automatic enrollment for some public plans. Often what we see in this category is a law that applies to the state, but does not cover any other political subdivisions. So counties, municipalities, and everyone outside of the state plan are still prohibited. Now, this is not always the case, however. In some states like Wisconsin, the reverse is true, and it's the state plan that's prohibited from using automatic enrollment, and other plans may. In total, 16 states have split rules like these. Another interesting category is represented by the dark blue-green color. These states have laws prohibiting automatic enrollment, but they allow it if it is collectively bargained with unions. A notable case there is the city of LA, which is in California, which does not allow automatic enrollment, but LA was able to implement automatic enrollment after securing the provision in their collective bargaining agreements with their unions. This category includes 5 states. And finally, we have the 20 light blue states which prevent automatic enrollment entirely. One question we often receive is, why would any state prevent automatic enrollment in a retirement plan? And we think this is a great question. The answer is that almost none of them did it on purpose. Most of the laws affecting automatic enrollment are called wage garnishment laws. These laws prevent any money from coming out of an employee's paycheck without their written authorization. They are mostly older laws that were created for good reason. No one wants money coming out of their check. But under the same provisions, even though money goes into an account that belongs to a participant, automatic enrollment is affected. The only way to allow automatic enrollment in these states is by changing state laws. Many of the purple and green states on the map have done this, most recently in Kentucky and Illinois, but it is a significant effort for plans to undertake. So today, since it applies to most of you, we're going to focus on plans in states that do not have automatic enrollment. And today we're joined by two that generally prohibit it, Pennsylvania and New York. Pennsylvania and Alaska. Both plans we will feature have partnered with their service providers to create thoughtful, innovative campaigns to help their employees save for retirement and have overcome the barrier of not being able to use automatic enrollment. We're very excited to have them here with us today. And with that, we're going to turn it over to Jacob, Robert, and Mark to talk about their work at SEPTA. Guys, take it away.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks again for the opportunity to address you all today. My name is Robert Lamb. I'll start. I'm the communication consultant with Prudential Financial, working with Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, or the SEPTA plan. I want to talk about how our initial transition campaigns laid a successful foundation and provided us some key lessons and insights as we move from the transition stage into our ongoing stages, and in particular, as we focus on the topic that you brought up already, building enrollment within the plan. I'm joined by Jacob Afshauer, one of the general managers of SEPTA, and Mark Colasanto, who manages the retirement counseling team here at Prudential. I'll start by turning it over to Jacob so he can talk a little bit about his organization and its transition in 2018.
Hello, everybody. This is Jacob Afshauer. SEPTA, or Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, we provide transportation services, buses, trolleys, trains, to the Southeastern Pennsylvania area. We have 9,500 employees, and they work different shifts around the clock, every day of the week. We have about 100 locations, and it's difficult to get to all of them. We don't have HR people in those locations, so we definitely have a challenge when we roll out any new program. In 2018, we switched and we joined the Prudential team to offer our 457B account. And one of our major reasons to switch was we wanted to improve enrollment and we wanted to improve our communications. So our transition campaign ran a few months in 2018 to convert from our prior record keeper to Prudential. And our participation communications campaign continues to this very day. Every day we're out there, we're trying to sell the plan, service the plan, and build credibility. You can go to the next slide, please. All right, so obviously, so we have a blue collar environment, heavy union involvement, don't necessarily trust everything they get. So the way we can successfully implement anything is really having boots on the ground. Obviously, it's a lot easier in the pre-COVID times, but to be successful, we had 3 full-time people from Prudential that are at our locations full-time, and they built credibility and with the rank and file. We have large locations, small locations, sometimes people working out of their trucks, and it's hard to get to them. They don't have access to phones or computers. They're fixing wires or track or driving buses or driving trains. So it's definitely a challenge for us to communicate to them. So as we worked with Prudential, we developed a campaign. We would meet every week. We would go over who are we going to talk to, how are we going to talk to, and I look at Prudential really as an extension of the SEPTA HR staff. And one of our goals was to increase our enrollment from 38% to 50% by the end of 2019. So the next slide, please.
Thanks, Jacob. I can add a little bit here and talk specifically about what we did. I think that might be scalable to other organizations as they look to increase plan participation. I think we all have different types of challenges. I enjoyed reading through Alaska's challenges and the unpaved roads and the several weeks of mail delivery and so forth. So we all have different levels of challenges, but I think there were some key elements here that we came through that are applicable across the board here. First and foremost is really collaboration. Jacob mentioned that. He mentioned the weekly meetings that we have, but I think the key there is it boils down to getting to know one another. In this case, see the employees, ride their system, go to their buildings. I would give one example of some signage that we developed for our counselors' offices that were within the HR suite at SEPTA. Actually came from an idea of a sign that I had seen in their lobby that I thought we could apply a similar graphic and put it up in our suite of offices there. SEPTA's HR department, this is something that many of us in a paper-rich or form-intensive environment can relate to. SEPTA's HR department has a waiting area with a wall of acrylic flyer and form holders that we noticed one day. Well, we asked if we could get some rotating educational material put into that wall of flyers, and in fact, they were able to accommodate us and use some of that space in there. So it really is about getting to know each other very, very well. It's sometimes conversations in hallways, it's meeting rooms. In SEPTA's case, Jacob had talked about the weekly meetings. Those were often held in person at their HQ, so we would go there. Prudential did put a lot of emphasis into getting to know SEPTA up front, and part of that was trying to use localized reps wherever possible, localized team members. So for the communications, I actually live outside of Philadelphia, and I always joke that I take SEPTA to get to SEPTA. I take their train system to get in. The retirement counselors are, of course, residents of the area, and even the rest of our service team was familiar with the city and SEPTA having ties to the area. That's probably the most important lesson we learned. But we also employed some smart branding. We started with a destination retirement brand that was meant to showcase our transition pieces, and we continue to use that theme, but we broadened it into pulling in images of the Philadelphia skyline that you can see here, and often will show a bridge into the city that help convey destination. That approach allows us, from our perspective, to provide a unified framework for our pieces as we roll out new services or introduce new collateral for the SEPTA employees. But also on their side, it allows quick and ready identification on the part of the employees to see exactly what this piece is and who it's from. The multi-channel approach is really, really key here. Given the challenges that we talked about earlier, electronic was not going to work. You've got Wi-Fi issues in subway tunnels, you've got operators, et cetera, that are literally have to keep their hands on the wheel as they perform their jobs and can't have access to a computer. Nor is all print feasible in this day and age, for cost reasons. So we really had to mix the delivery to what makes sense. One example of that is that all SEPTA employees have free passes to ride the system. So centralized presentations during the day were sometimes very well attended, simply because employees don't have to worry about paying for or finding parking downtown. They can take the system in and attend our meetings there. We found the use of the client's intranet is key, and we've developed a number of pieces to collateral to fit in with the parameters of what they use in their different delivery channels as well. We've also been able to use data to help improve and allow us to segment messaging after the transition and target the audiences as we get to know our demographics even better. We've developed targeted emails and mailings for enrollment and contribution rate increase purposes since the transition. This is particularly important because in SEPTA's workforce, a portion of the workforce is match eligible and the larger portion is not match eligible. And it's obviously critical to send the correct piece to the right audience, but also it helps the messaging resonate with the right audience. So I think effective use of data and data mining can be very, very important. That's a lesson learned. And then lastly, as Jacob mentioned, the boots on the ground or the use of our retirement counselors. They have added tremendous value to both the transition and the ongoing efforts in terms of building up awareness and trust with us and our efforts in trying to increase enrollment. I'm going to turn it over to Mark for a bit to showcase how Prudential's counselors have really gotten to know SEPTA and really made an impact on enrollment.
Hi, thanks everyone for including me. So my partners, Joe Hayes and Mike Alnitsky, started our visits to different locations, whether it be the rail yards or underground platforms, with our HR partners. By doing that, that helped us learn the culture of each different site. And like any office in the world, every site has a different personality and culture to it. We learned their break times, who the senior people were, and the influencers to help us build credibility. The biggest argument that some of the participants had was, why would I need this if I have the pension already? And HR would explain the pension, and then we would come in and explain why this would help bridge that gap for their income needs in the future. It also helped us manage our second and third shift employees, where we can go out at 5 a.m. and meet with them, or 11 p.m. As Jacob mentioned, this is a 24-hour operation, so we have to be available to all participants at all times. We do have a dedicated office in headquarters, but a lot of people don't go down there, so we need to be out on the road at all times. We got to learn about some of the underserved populations. As Jacob mentioned, some of the people who are out on the rails or the road each day, and our transit police force. So we made some efforts to go to the roll calls where we got to meet everybody before they went about their day all over Philadelphia, and meet with them right there and then. And it's been a huge response from each location because they never get to see us otherwise. And that's really helped those different types of populations. Jacob and his team have allowed us to present twice a month, usually, at a recurring new hire orientations. We get our slot, just as we would with any other presenter for SEPTA, where we get to discuss the plan, the benefits of it, what's going on, why it's important, introduce the options for investments, and we enroll them right on the spot for the people that are interested, and we're averaging anywhere from 50 to 60%, sometimes more, on the spot that day. Anyone who does not get that opportunity, some people just aren't ready. So we have our virtual follow-ups where we can send out the enrollment forms, and we can walk them through that online, or they can go onto our website and enroll right on the spot as well. Some people just aren't ready that day. They want to go home and discuss it. It's just overwhelming. So we get to do the follow-ups a couple weeks later where they don't feel as much pressure. This has enabled us to also provide seminars now where we can do Roth, budgeting, asset allocation, and that just reinforces why they should be in the plan and the education that we provide. We've also started looking at special groups within SEPTA, like the Women in Transportation, where we provided a Women and Investing seminar that was very largely attended, and we're actually planning on doing a few more in the future. That just brought a special niche to what we offer and really helped, again, build our credibility and why this is important. Over the couple weekends that we've spent, SEPTA has their rail and bus rodeo competitions where we will go, we'll set up shop. It's more of a carnival atmosphere, but people get to see us with their families. Sometimes their spouses or friends want to help them and discuss it. And again, that just helps along why this is so important. After our 1-year anniversary with SEPTA, we decided to hold a little celebration in the lobby of headquarters. We brought together some of our virtual capabilities, some toys. We were going through with them a website that we use called Where Would You Like to Retire? They get to punch in a few questions, and I would say 90% of the people ended up retiring on the beach. And then we got to use our virtual reality goggles so they can actually put them on and feel like they were either in the mountains or on the beach or in the city, just to have a little bit of fun with them and really make retirement a reality and the thought of actually being retired at some point. Because a lot of people can't picture that in the future. They just kind of see now it's a nice to have. They want to retire. They can think about it, but they don't actually put it together. It also helped when we used our aging booths so they can see what they look like in the future, and that was a lot of fun as well. Since that was such a big hit, we did see a lot of people visit us in the lobby that day. Not everyone remembers to come up to see us at headquarters on the 6th floor, or they're not out in the field. So we now, once or twice a month, we like to set up tables in the lobby, and it gets those people that it becomes out of sight, out of mind. They get caught up with their day-to-day, they get caught up with their work, and now they see us, and it's, oh, I really forgot to do this. I've been wanting to come upstairs for so long. I just keep getting in the way. I'm glad you're here. And we've had a lot of success with people stopping by and really, whether it's enrolling or increasing or just general questions, it's been a huge hit. Here are some of our participants using the aging booth and the virtual reality goggles. We have been putting up some signage around the lobby by the elevators so they know that we're coming, and just showing a little bit about the different seminars that we've been holding at 1234 Market Street headquarters, that they can come and sit down and do a bit of a lunch and learn to enjoy and figure out, hey, maybe I can work on a new budget, or where's my money allocated, or the power of Roth and versus pre-tax. So it's really been a great experience watching this evolve over the past year and a half or so.
So Mark, thank you very much for that really great picture of how the counselors in our partnership with SELTA has helped move the needle here. I want to conclude my portion with really the results. How have we done? We started with a 38% participation rate when Prudential became the record keeper in August of 2018, or shortly before that, actually. And through August of 18, we were able to move that needle up to 44%. As Jacob mentioned, we established an informal goal of, by the end of 2019, of 50%, and we did just touch that goal, surpass it a little bit. And since then, we've actually moved up to 51% at the end of March of 2020. Now, unfortunately, we are looking at a retooling and adapting our efforts as we move forward in this COVID-19 with the travel, business, and health concerns. But we are confident that with the foundation that we laid, the partnership with SEPTA, we will continue to move that needle throughout 2020. So on that note, Mark or Jacob, do you all have any final follow-up thoughts?
No, the only other area that you were really successful with was in our open enrollments. When in the fall, when we visit all our locations, Prudential's been a key member of our team, visiting all of our locations every day. And then just simply that communication, as everybody knows, you need to do it different ways: print, mail, electronic, audio. Just different, you got to hit them up different ways, and finally something will click. And then the best way to communicate to people, at least in our world, is having boots on the ground. That's it.
All right, well, thank you very much. That was fantastic. Now we're gonna turn our attention to the north, to Alaska, where the state office has used the unique culture and the challenging geography of the frontier state to its advantage to build a successful campaign for non-automatic enrollment. Roberto, Liz, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate the time today. So my name is Liz Davidson. I'm a managing director at Empower Retirement. With me today is my partner, Roberto Acevita. He is a counseling and benefits manager with the state of Alaska. So we are partners on a daily basis on how we reach out to participants in Alaska and how we can do better. So on the next slide, we talk about our goal. So Empower and State of Alaska have been in a 30-year partnership working with the now roughly 77,000 participants that we have. We're always looking for a fresh perspective. So how do we do better for Alaskans? So for our strategic planning session back in 2017, we began with the end in mind. And our goal was to make sure we help all Alaskans understand their role in preparing for a successful future, and then providing them with the necessary resources to put them on the right path. So on this slide, we're going to talk about the day and what those goals were. So we made the decision at that point to come together and really focus on everything. No limits. What is our landscape for Alaskans? And we got down to the basics. Who are Alaskans and what do they need? We brought in Ink Factory to document all the ideas and organize them so we all could just simply focus on creativity and strategy. We took everything we discussed and came up with 3 focuses: participation, retention, and retirement readiness. Roberto now is going to talk about what we found that's unique to Alaska and what challenges we'd be solving for, and then some of the principles we used on our journey. Roberto?
All right, thank you, Liz. So in looking at our strategy session, we were looking at participation, retention, and retirement readiness. What we discovered is that there's a number of challenges that are across all spectrums of the areas that we're looking at. And so we've identified challenges in geography where a lot of folks don't really see Alaska on the next to the lower 48, but to get a good idea of how large the state of Alaska is, if you stretch it out to the Aleutian Chain down to the southeast panhandle section, that actually is the same distance from the west coast to the east coast, so from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. So our state spans the entire length of the United States, or the same length. And so traveling is also is a big issue. Another issue is messaging that resonates. And so we have a lot of cultures, different cultures in the state of Alaska. So outside of the main corridor, which we call Fairbanks, Juneau, and Anchorage, there's 100 or 230 tribes throughout the state of Alaska that are registered. And so they provide unique language barriers, they provide unique communication barriers. And there's times of the year in which you just can't go out there because they're still doing their hunting and gathering. And so a lot of places don't deal with that. So there's nobody there, they're completely shut down. We also looked at resources. And so we looked at who was doing what, were we duplicating anything, or were we not doing anything, or who should be doing something. And so helped us identify what we were up to. The information that we were providing, was that information relatable to the members? Were they understanding? Were they becoming engaged? And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. Employer engagement was also another issue, one of the challenges that we identified. So in a couple of employer conferences that I've attended and was speaking at, I polled a group and discovered that a large portion of the employers that were there at the employer conference were completely brand new members. They did not understand the plan. They didn't they didn't understand who their contacts were, who to contact who for what. And so they were really confused. And so we needed to get the employers more involved. And so we needed to establish a relationship with them and bring them in because they are part of the team. We also need to encourage people to care. So our members were missing the opportunity from some of the research that we've discovered, or that we did, and we discovered that we need to engage them as soon as possible. So we need to get them involved right off the bat, or as soon as we possibly can. And that's going to take the efforts from all of us as part of the team, the state of Alaska, Empower Retirement, and the employers. Can I get the next slide, please? All right. So next, I want to briefly describe the research we relied upon before we've been creating our content. The first set of research was behavioral economics. Specifically, what we were working on was called the nudge theory. We knew we wanted to create materials that would nudge our members or Alaskans to act in a predictable way that was in their own best interest. We wanted them basically to get involved and to enroll into the defined contribution retirement plan. And this is exactly what the nudge theory teaches us. It says how to alter behaviors in a predictable way, but not to limit or forbid choices. So once we established what we wanted to do and how we wanted to nudge people, we wanted to set out and understand what words we could use to do that. Next slide, please. So when talking to employees about their retirement plan, using words that employees understand will help them feel confident, prepared. While using terms that they don't understand will leave them feeling nervous, put out, and that was certainly not how we wanted Alaskans to feel when enrolling in the DC plan. And so on an industry standard, we use a lot of terminology that regular members or regular people just don't understand. So in looking at an example that we have here on this slide, one of the first one is match. So a match is something you use to light a fire with, or so someone would say who is not in the industry. Well, if you're talking to someone within the industry, they may say, well, that's an employer match, or it is part of your contributions. And so just a simple example like that shows that what words you use matter. And so we relied upon the research that shows what terms people understand, what terms they don't. And on this slide, you can see some of the findings from that research. So there were several words that respondents identified as confusing jargon on the left side of the screen. You'll see match, deferral, assets, managed account. But small tweaks to these words, what we found, can improve their understanding. For example, respondents understand employer match better than using the word match, or instead of using managed accounts, they prefer professional account management. We found that respondents actually comprehend and prefer many of the words that are frequently used in retirement communications, such as contributions, enroll, and registered investment advisor. So basically what we want to do is we really want to stick with the clear terms and stay away from confusing jargon.
So on this slide, lastly, we relied on Empower research that shows that personalization is key. Not only the what, but the how. You cannot peanut butter your approach to the participants. Every person is different. In Alaska, that's geographically, that's from an age perspective, gender. Every certain person within even those categories is different. So we found that personalized campaigns increase engagement versus that peanut butter approach. And in fact, based on what we found in our email data, employees are 6 times more likely to engage when that communication is personalized versus generic messages. Our retirement plan advisors are out there in the field. We do general sessions, but then we really invite people to come to a one-on-one session to say, what does that information mean to me? And then armed with the behavioral economics, the removing that jargon, personalization research, and then our deeper knowledge of Alaskans, we laid out a plan. So this is that plan. This is the visual representation of that partnership plan from that day. It's our roadmap to doing better, which is always our goal. This roadmap, as you can see, has both State of Alaska deliverables as well as Empower deliverables. This is what we use to build out a project plan with more focused and specific tasks. That's Roberto's going to go over on the next slide.
All right, so our research-based deliverables. So what we discovered was that there's some things that we wanted to completely revamp, and one of them was the plan rebrand. We wanted to introduce a new look to all plan materials and to add a mascot, which off to the right here you can see his name's Bjorn, it's our bear, to which all Alaskans can relate. We also wanted to revamp our messaging that we're putting out, to restructure the language and key messages so that all materials, whether online, printable, or that we mail out and postcards, are incorporating generational, geographic, and cultural differences. And then better together, we wanted to reinforce the partnership out there between the Division Alaska Retirement Benefits and Empower, so that employees understood the resources that we have available, and we do have an example of that a little bit later. We wanted to utilize our ambassadors and testimonials to help promote the plan benefits with our colleagues and influential Alaskans. And we did this through a partnership with the Department of Public Safety. And then later, we also added to our team. So we wanted to expand on our local support. And so all of us know who work in this industry that members like to talk with people. So, and that's exactly what we did. We added more to our teams, both on the Empower side and the State of Alaska side. So members can talk to financial professionals. Next slide, please. Okay. So on this slide are some of the key tactics that we employed for communication. So individual appointments and seminars help with the need for personalization, the individual communications, because more touches we have with the plan, the more we have participants getting ready for retirement. It's the bottom line. Simple communications and avoiding the jargon. And finally, creating videos. Now, what we did at the State of Alaska is we went back and we reevaluated all the videos we had and basically retooled them, reworked them. And so taking out the confusing jargon, putting in some standard words that everyone can relate to and understand, and also making these videos in short, bite-sized, consumable portions so that a member, if they're watching them, can pause after a chapter or two, which were, instead of being an hour and a half to 2 hours long, each chapter only ran 5 to 15 minutes. So, which allowed us to put it out there and allow a member to come back and pick up where they left off versus just walking away from it. So all this in an effort to keep the nudge behavior going all the way through the member's experience.
So with this partnership, here are some of the results. Here's some of the new simplified materials. On the left-hand side is the Better Together flyer. And this serves as a one-stop shop piece that's one page, front and back. Talks about what the state of Alaska does, what Empower does. The state of Alaska solely holds the DB plan, so there's some things that they do that you would not come to Empower for. And then there's certain things Empower does that the state wouldn't be doing. So clarifying what that is, where to go to if you have questions, that general timeline, that roadmap at the bottom for success that we hope really provokes people to think about their specific situation and make an appointment to find out, how does this apply to me? And then that second page there, when do I go to the website? When do I call the state? When do I call Empower? So really focusing and honing in specifically on where people go when. On the right-hand side, these two postcards used to be 3-page-ish long documents just full of words. So we completely removed these postcards introducing participants to their plans, simplified it, only gave them what they needed to know in the postcard and where to go if they needed further information so they can move forward. So we were really proud of these materials. So on the next slide, we want to start talking about results. We put in all the work, right? But was it even meaningful? We got really excited about what we did. We know what gets measured gets results. So this dashboard here is to see the results of all the different pieces and communications that we do. So the state has been able to continuously measure the results through their dashboards to make sure they're headed in the right direction. And if it's not looking in the right direction, we pivot. So what have those results been? Very meaningful results, we believe. We saw an increase in one-on-one meetings. As Roberto mentioned, we increased staff, not only on the Empower side, but the state side. So we were able to absolutely increase those individual meetings, which we really believe creates action. And that is such key, that is key for the personalized attention. Our retirement plan advisors and the state counselors really work together in partnership to reach all the different areas in Alaska and by different mediums. Some prefer the email, some prefer online, some prefer in person. So how do we reach all of Alaska as large as it is in a way that's meaningful to people? We also saw an incredible increase in enrollments into the state's 457 plan. From 2017 to 2019, we saw a 62% increase, which was great. So it says we are on the right path, but we can always do better. So what's next? We are always, like I said, working on leveling up, doing better year after year. So we did do our annual strategic planning session again for 2020 and have our plan in place with the same goals in mind to get Alaskans retirement ready. Due to the current climate we're in, we did have to pivot slightly to create the same support for the Alaskans in a virtual world, which we are finding to be working pretty well. We will continue to strategize together, Alaska and Empower, and follow our plan that we really believe in the end will make sure Alaskans feel supported in their retirement journey. Thanks.
All right, thank you both very much. Those were fantastic. As I mentioned, the state of Alaska and SEPTA were two of our Leadership Award winners this year. Their campaigns were certainly very different, but they shared some similarities with each other and with our other award winners in this category that we've actually tried to break down for our members. So on this slide, you can see a publication we created focused on those similarities called Techniques for Increasing Enrollment. I just want to point out a few that were especially important in the cases today. The first one is knowing your audience. When I speak with plans around the country, I often hear, our plan is different. And I hear that from almost everyone. And to be honest, almost everyone is right. Your plan is different. And understanding those differences is a key to many successful plans like the ones you saw today. Another issue to point out is that simplicity, clarity, clear calls to action, those were obviously very important in the plans that we saw today. That's a theme that we've seen from many successful campaigns. And something that we were trying to emphasize with this webinar is also reinforcing the relationship with your plan provider. There are some things, as Liz mentioned, that you can do as the government entity. There are some things that they can do as the service provider, and really finding the balance between those two things has helped a lot of plans be successful. So you can check that out. It is on our website. It can be found in the resources library. It'll also be along with this webinar recording, which you are watching now. There are also links to our other past award winners and to the cases that you saw today from SEPTA and Alaska, if you want to read through those and gain some of their insights. So that's about all the time we have for today. I do have one quick question that I wanted to ask both of you. Liz, you hit on it somewhat, and it was also mentioned, I believe from Robert, that it's a different time. As you mentioned, the SEPTA folks, every site has its own personality. I thought that was a great, quote. Roberto mentioned that members like to talk to people. The more touches, the better. You all talked about getting boots on the ground and having those individual sessions. Obviously, it's a very different time now. There's an adjustment to the realities of COVID-19. It's early in the process, but I'm sure you're thinking about it, and I'm sure our members are thinking about it as they're watching this. And so I was wondering, folks from SEPTA, and anybody can jump in, are there any concrete steps you've taken yet to think through how that's going to affect your campaigns in the future?
Hi, this is Jacob Alfschauer from SEPTA. So we're thinking and planning doing virtual new employee orientations right now. So we don't want to bring in 30 new people next Monday that we want to hire. So we're trying to have everything virtual done through WebEx. So we would include Prudential as part of that explanation of benefits. And so instead of being in one room, it would be a virtual room.
Interesting. Roberto, you kind of the same in Alaska, or any other thoughts?
Yes, for new enrollments, and what we've done was we actually completed a recording this year. And so what we do for employers who have a large recruitment is we go ahead and send out the video in advance. And instead of doing a traditional seminar, which people sit back and listen, ask questions back and forth, we send them out the information in advance. It allows them to review it, generate questions, and it allows us to work freely with the group. And so we can do a Q&A, which seems to be most beneficial to members other than just sitting and listening. And so that's one method we're addressing our current situation with.
That's interesting. Yeah, trying to keep it interactive will certainly be a challenge, and I'm sure it's something that all of you are working on who are watching this right now. We are going to continue to try to build our resources to help all of you understand what the best plans are doing. We look forward to the award submissions this year. I'm sure there'll be a lot of innovation from all of you to see how you're adjusting and what we can pull out of that to help future plans figure out how to work in an even more challenging environment. And we know that all of you are facing challenges, but it will be certainly a different environment. So we want to thank all of you today from SEPTA, Prudential, the state of Alaska, and Empower. Thank you all for joining us. This has been really enlightening. Congratulations on the award. We really appreciate the submissions, and we're very excited to have you with us today. To all of you out there, please stay safe. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye.